Hi there, my name's Julia Gash, and I'm from a brand called Talented, which is a sister company to Bidby, meaning bag it, don't bin it. We make bags for lots of British fashion brands, and Talented is our own label of bags. And we're exhibiting here up at Z22, almost above us now. And I'm here to talk about taking the fear out of exporting. I've been exporting probably almost all my business life. My very first international order came in this building here in 1991 when I was exhibiting under my own name fashion label, which I ran for 10 years, when a Japanese man came and ordered and placed this really big order, the biggest order I'd ever seen. And I was absolutely frozen with fear. I had no idea what to do. And he very kindly talked me through the order and how I actually get it to Japan. The company's name was Ships, which is one of Japan's biggest retailers and best retailers. And that was the start of a working relationship, which still continues to this day. So I was in the position where I knew nothing, terrified that I was going to mess it up. But over the years, and how many years later, 23 years later, I've learnt a lot along the way, got a National Export Award for exporting and so on. So I'm here today to talk about taking away that fear and just making it easy. You can't eat an elephant in one go, you can't rule the world, but you take it down into bite-sized pieces of information, and going over those hurdles, it's easy. So the first thing is, if you are going to export and go through all the trouble of doing it, why? Why would you want to do it? It grows your market, and with that it grows sales. There's about 63 million people in the UK. I don't know how many people are in the world, but it's massive, and the UK is like that. And particularly in the fashion industry, it is really hard to really be an amazing, successful brand if you're a small brand in the UK. It is much easier in the rest of the world. The UK, as you know, it's this hard industry. It's tied up with lots of big chains. So the overseas market is not just bigger, it's also stronger. I set up Talented 2 years ago and my current business Bidby 8 years ago, so I've been working through a recession and difficult times where there's a lot of parts in the world far more affluent, far more consumer driven in terms of sales. There's far more opportunities for you to sell your product in those economies. It's a lot easier. It's not the difficulties that you have in the UK just don't exist in quite a few parts of the world. It also increases your brand profile and credentials. So if you are selling, as we are, to Lane Crawford in Hong Kong, in Shanghai, to Hankyu in Japan, in Tokyo, all of this suddenly elevates your brand. And one person knows those accounts and they trust that and they trust the other, and it's a bit like a snowball effect. So it really does give you a much stronger credential and profile if you have suddenly got this international portfolio and stockist list. It also brings extra stability to your business. If all your eggs are in the UK basket and that UK basket has a bit of a wobble, could happen. We're actually doing well now as a country, you know, we're pulling ourselves out of a recession. But why put all of your eggs in one basket? Surely it's better to spread your risk around the world. So by having an export arm to your business, as well as still going for the home market, it makes sense. You're spreading the risk across the world. It can create some really interesting collaborations. Quite a lot of the development of my own brand, Talented, comes from discussions with our Japanese distributor or our Greek distributor. As you get to know each other's business, it can come up with some really different things you would never have thought of in England, because you've got a worldwide perspective on your own brand. And your own brand will develop as well. So, for example, our handles on our bags are probably slightly shorter than they were when we started. They are by 10 centimetres, to take into consideration for the fact that our biggest market is the Asia Pacific region, and they're smaller. The other reason, it's exciting. It's so exciting. When I went to Tokyo and I saw a woman walking down the street with one of my bags. It's great. It's exciting and it's fun. And it's easy. It's not difficult. So hopefully over the next few slides I'll show you how it's easier than what you think. So where do you start? The world's a massive place. Okay, we want to export, so let's just go at it all over the world. No, that's not the way to go. The world's a massive place, and if you spread yourself around the world, you'll just collapse through exhaustion and lack of money. So the place to start is actually identifying who is interested in your brand, who is buying your brand. If you're not currently exporting, then in the UK, you will know who's buying your brand. It could be from online sales. You can tell by someone's name and the profile, maybe where they're coming from, where it's actually going to internationally. It could be if you're stocking shops, who they say is buying your brand. For me, for our brand Talented, when we first launched it here 2 years ago, lots of interest from the Japanese, just as it was 20 years ago, because my style of printmaking and print just happens to work well with that market. So that was a good starting point for me. When I did a pop-up store in Pop-Up Piccadilly, again, it was that market that actually was really successful. So you can actually glean from who's actually buying your products, the consumers, who's keen. It might be Scandinavian market, it could be the North American market, but there's going to be a part of the world that's interested in your brand more than any other part, and you have to find out what that is. And you have to find out why that is. Not just what it is, but why. Because that's really important. For me, Talented is all about print. And the Japanese have a strong history of printmaking. And the way we work is quite similar to quite a lot of printmaking in Japan. Hence, there's a connection there. So that's a logical way. So it was really important for me to find out why. There's probably loads of other reasons too, but I won't go into them now. So who's interested in your brand? Where is the interest coming from? Who buys it currently? Where does it go to the consumers? Where do your competitors sell to? It's really important to know what your competitors are doing. Who are your competitors? Where are they marketing themselves? Why are they marketing themselves there? Because if they're there, then that's an indication you should be there. But don't just copycat, because otherwise you could then go spending a lot of money focused on a market, and actually there could be something different about your brand to a competitor which you haven't really seen. And where is there a tradition and an appetite for your product? Obviously, if you're doing knitwear, I imagine Scandinavia would be a good market, North America, Canada, but not necessarily sort of Southern Europe or sort of Southern America. So where is the tradition for your product? So it's about knowing your product and knowing who buys it. So that market research before you start tackling the world can be really, really important. So where do you then find your customers? Okay, well, one place obviously is international trade shows such as Pure London. There's key fashion shows on the circuit. We exhibit at Who's Next Paris, which is a successful show for us. There's German shows, such as Bread and Butter, very difficult to get into as a small brand, so there's lots of fringe shows. So trade shows are really important, but they're also really expensive. And if you want to tackle the world through trade shows, you've got to have big bucks. You've got to have really deep purses. And if you make a mistake, that's a lot of money. It's £5,000 probably just gone like that. So you have to sort of really think carefully about where you're going to go and do your research on that. And also do bit by bit. I would love to take Talented to probably about 15 shows a season, but I can't. So I have to edit it down, and my rule is we spend 10% of our income on trade shows. That's it. So, there's another trade show I really want to do, and if we have a good August, we will do it. If not, that's it, done. We won't. Because you've got to be very disciplined. Otherwise, your budget can just get blown on trade shows, and, you've got to keep an eye on your numbers. Trade missions are often a much cheaper way and can be just as effective, if not more so, because it can be much more targeted. So organisations such as the UKTI, who have hosted this here today, or the UKFT, the UK Fashion and Textile Association, organise trade missions. Your local trade organisations, your local Chamber of Commerce's or your local UKTI, or even your bank may also do trade missions. Santander, who I bank with, they're doing a big trade mission to Middle East in September, for example. My first foray into export was with Santander Bank, where they organised a trade mission to New York just 2.5 years ago now. So there's lots of different ways you can go on a trade mission, which is usually a sort of collaboration of different people. It's best if you can do it industry specific, such as fashion, because then they'll often put on events, they'll invite lots of buyers. It can vary on the success depending on where you do it. When I did it in Japan, Japan's embassy is incredibly well organised. They know all the buyers attend. And it's pretty fantastic. And they connect you to the buyers. It's easy to get meetings with these buyers who, often at a trade show, you can be here and go, well, where are all these big buyers? They may be here, but they're busy people. They've got a lot of people to see here. They've got all their regulars to see. And if you're new, they may miss you, though it's still important to have a trade show presence, in my view. So trade missions are really, really important, but how you use that trade mission is so important. I went to Hong Kong on a trade mission with the UKTI in March. It's since brought in about £15,000 worth of business, and we've got into the top department store in Hong Kong, Lane Crawford, as well as some really other cool shops. But I really prepped that trade mission. I worked it before I was there, I worked it whilst I was there, I worked it afterwards, and I now, from Hong Kong, I've now got into China and Taiwan. I'm just getting into Singapore, all because of that trade mission, where some of the colleagues on the mission were going for facials, were going shopping, and lo and behold, it didn't work. You've got to work it. You're spending all that money, you're taking all that time out of your business, you've got to work it, otherwise it's a wasted opportunity, and you don't get those opportunities necessarily a second time. Talk to the UKTI. I know UKTI have sponsored this event here and are organising this, but the UKTI have been absolutely critical in the development of Talented. We have a good local representative, Paul, and I meet with him about every 4 or 5 months, and he'll ask me what's happening. He'll point me in the direction of any support that's available. When I started exporting 2 years ago, it was actually because Bidby, Bag It Don't Bin It, my company that makes bags for other companies under private label, we were mainly making for the UK because tote bags are quite heavy but cheap, so it's not an easy thing to export. So I had to work out in my mind, I knew I wanted to export, how was I going to do it? So I created a really cool and creative fashion label, a tote bag fashion label, and it worked because that was the quickest and easiest way to get it in stores around the world. But for me to do that, I hadn't been exporting that much for really about 10 years. So I wanted to refresh my knowledge. So I signed up to a passport to export course, and I learned how to manage agents, manage distributors, learned so much. Even though I'd done it all before, 10 years ago, the world changes, of course. I didn't have the internet when I did it before. You know, the fax was the latest invention. So a lot of change. So UKTI representatives are very useful. So in about 2-3 weeks, I go to New York to a trade show, New York Now. So I've already connected with the UKTI rep over there to connect me to various people. I then go to Toronto, where we've got Canadian distributors. I've already set up meetings with UKTI in Canada, in Toronto, who've connected me to the Ministry of Economy in Toronto, because I'm interested in setting up a print factory. I just want to explore it. But all those meetings are set up. That's what they can do for you. They can also connect you directly to distributors and buyers, but you know, if it's quite a bit of work, they'll ask for a fee for that, and that's called an OMIS report. So when I first of all saw that Japan was interested in my brand, I thought, how am I going to find these buyers? So I actually commissioned a report, which meant that they researched and warmed up leads. So I said, okay, I want to find 5 distributors, maybe top 10 retailers for my brand, and from that I can choose on distributors. So that's what I did. I think it cost me, I can't remember how much it cost me, about £800 because I got a grant. It should have been about £1,500. And from that, got the best distributor who's spent about £100,000 with us since. So all because of that report, which cost me about £800. So it's very good. Not every country will work like that because Obviously, each country's got its own character, so it's not a recipe for every single country. But I'm just talking at the moment to Singapore, to potential distributors, contacted the British Chambers out there, they're connecting me there. So again, it's finding those partners. You can also, starting off with nothing, you trawl through websites of brands that are similar to yours, where you think, okay, if I was a buyer and I'm buying this, what else would I be interested in? You think, okay, that brand would fit with my product, so if that buyer's buying that, then maybe they're interested in me. Some websites have their stockist list, very helpful. So you can glean a stockist list and start to contact them, cold call, and go through that. We've found customers that way. It's a lot of work, but if you've got no money, it's a starting point. Network with other friendly brands, find out who represents them internationally. Some people might actually tell you and be helpful. Also, your agents and distributors, as you start to get them, they're also agents and distributors for other brands, often, unless they work exclusively with you, which if you're a small brand is probably unlikely. They'll be working for other brands too. And they will know other people. So my Greek distributor knows a Spanish distributor. I'm really wanting to find a Spanish distributor, so I'm working on my Greek distributor to try and find out if she can find someone for me in Spain. May happen. So, people know each other. Okay, so say you know where your market is, you've got some support from the UKTI, you know a little bit about exporting, so let's start getting ready for it. What have we got to do? Well, the first thing you've got to make sure is that your brand is internationally friendly. By that, I mean it's got to be made easy for a buyer to understand your brand and to be able to buy. You've got to remove the obstacles. As an example, Bag It Don't Bin It is now called Bidby. The reason why was because we found that our international buyers, particularly from the Asia Pacific region, by the time we said Bag It Don't Bin It, they'd lost interest. It was too long a name. It was just too long to say. We had to shorten it and make it just something which sounded easy. Bidby, it's easy to say. The other thing, we used to say we make bespoke bags. We're a bespoke bag manufacturer, and we found out from the North American market that, oh my God, they must be really expensive bags because they're bespoke. When we changed the word to custom, we custom make bags, we custom print bags. Suddenly, oh yeah, we understand what custom means. Fine, you make branded bags. So the wording is really important. They thought bespoke meant suits. Bespoke suits, really expensive. So, suddenly you change the word from bespoke to custom and you knock a zero off your price in their minds. So by using the word bespoke, it was an obstacle. We had to change all our, we went through everything on our website and making sure that the way we write is easy to understand, but it still carries the tone and the voice of our brand. So being internationally friendly is important. We actually got an international brand consultant in to do that work for us. Again, that was through the UKTI. They recommended someone, and we got some support for that. Make sure your price lists are in the key currencies. So here I've got Euro and GBP price lists. I haven't got dollars with me because I don't really feel I need that with me. But I've got it so I can email if anybody wants it on email. But we have dollar price lists. And it's important to know how your buyer wants to buy. So, for example, in Hong Kong, we tend to sell in US dollars. In Japan, we'll sell in pounds sterling. It just depends what your buyer wants, and it's not difficult. And we tend to set the price per season, and we'll stick with that for that season, rather than going all over the place in terms of currency variation. So that's our risk. If there's a massive currency fluctuation between dollars and euros, then yeah, that will affect us. But as most of our products are made in US dollars anyway, then we're pretty much protected on that currency. So make sure your price lists are simple. Make sure it's easy to understand, because obviously for a lot of your buyers, they'll be working in a second language, which is English. The other thing is find out your transportation costs to your market. So if somebody does want to buy and they want to order your collection, they'll say, well, how much is it going to be to send that to Dubai? You need to know that. because that could become a real obstacle for them. Oh, it could be fine. It could be easy. So we have a rate chart with us, our UPS rate chart, because we use mainly UPS, we use other providers as well, but we know how much it's going to be. Make sure you've got something called a worldwide marine insurance policy, which means make sure when you're sending something, you've got an insurance policy. You don't want to be ticking insurance on every single parcel you send because it's expensive, maybe for the first couple of months, but it's much cheaper to get just like a policy. It's called a marine insurance policy. The other thing is make sure your price structure includes enough margin to pay an agent or a distributor, because that's how you really want to grow your brand. You do not want to be dealing directly with stores in Australia, in Indonesia, in Mexico, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of communication just for one parcel going out. You want somebody on the ground in their country who knows their market, who knows all their customers, representing you, because they can just really build your brand in their country. But for that, they need their money, they need their payment. And a typical payment will be, if it's an agent, it'll be about 15%. And an agent will take the order, but you deal with the order and you send it to the customer. So your arrangement is with the customer, but the agent is the go-between, the one who gets the order. And you have to honour and respect any transaction as well. Don't try and cut anybody out, because that'll be the end of your profile in that country. A distributor will buy your collection and they deal with the customer direct. They may consolidate all the orders and give you an order every month or every season, or they may just say, I'll have 100 of everything and carry stock, or whatever. They all work differently, and it's really important that you don't impose the way you work, but you understand how they work, as long as it works with you. And if not, then you tell them why it won't work, so that you can work something out. Just be honest. Get to know and love Incoterms. Incoterms are when you send something out overseas, you don't just send it and wave goodbye. If you do, it will end up and stay in customs in that country, and it won't get to the customer. It will just stick there. So you have to actually, really from the point of sales, from the point of taking an order here, for example, you've got to work out and write the delivery terms on that order. So Ex Works means they are responsible for everything from your factory or your office, Ex Works. So they will probably have a freight forwarder, they'll pick up the order and they'll send it off. Fantastic. You don't have to deal with anything. That's an ideal world, but that doesn't always happen. Something else could be, for example, FOB Heathrow. It means free on board Heathrow. It means you deal with everything to the point it gets on that plane or on that ship, if it's FOB Felixstowe, for example, and they take it from there on. Your responsibility is getting it there. They take it from there on. CIF will be cost insurance freight. That means you deal with everything except the duty. They would pay the import duty. You don't really want to be paying import duty, because it's an unknown sort of quantum really. But you make it clear what it is that you're doing. DDP is delivered duty paid. So that is everything all in. The Americans tend to favour that, particularly if it's an independent retailer in America. They'll tend to want that. You can find all this on the internet, but again, UKTI know it all. Again, paperwork, getting it right. Every single product in the world will have something called a harmonisation tariff code. So, for example, we make cotton bags, so there's a code for cotton bags, and you have to, on your invoice, make sure you've got that code for your product. So, for example, gold jewellery will be different to silver jewellery, leather bags will be different to canvas bags. So you just need to make sure you've got the right code, and again, you can Google it and find it. It's not difficult. If it's an EU customer, you need their VAT number, if they've got a VAT number, because we don't charge VAT within the EU. You can also check if it's the correct VAT number. So the EU is really like one big country, so it's just like sending something to Birmingham. You just need to make sure you've got the VAT number, otherwise, again, you will then get charged VAT by HM Customs and Excise, if indeed you're VAT registered yourself. Ask your customers. Don't be shy of saying to your customer, like, we just sent something, I tripped up myself, I sent something to Korea. I didn't realise that actually you need a declaration called like an EFTA well, it's like EFTA, but it's not EFTA. You just need to put a statement on the order, and I didn't realise because I didn't think, and he didn't say. It's okay, it just means that because I didn't, he has to pay a higher amount of duty. You don't really want that. You want it obviously smooth and best. Also, you need to send invoices for international orders on the outside of the box because someone's going to take one at every stage. Customs going out, customs going in. It needs to be signed in a blue pen. Make sure it's original. And also make sure you've got a clear packing list. So in box 1 is this, in box 2 is this. I know it sounds, a bit idiot-proof, but you've just got to do it at that level. You've got to do everything to stop your parcels getting stuck in customs. Building relationships. So now you've started, you want to build relationships. International partners are the way to go, in my view. It's easy. I mean, obviously, if you're really big, you can start opening your own offices internationally, but that's, further down the line. Try and get an agreement with your distributor and agent. It could be exclusive, could be non-exclusive. Often you think, well, actually, I want about 5 distributors. I want to really get into that market. However, if you do that, your distributors are really, you don't know what, it's going to be oversold, there's no continuity. It's best finding the right one and sticking with them, trusting them, getting behind them, and then you can really build a good relationship. Visit them, if you can, visit them, and you'll find out more about their market when you're there. I've just spent about 6 weeks writing the talented training manual for all our distributors and agents in the evenings and my weekends. It's about that thick. It's a Bible, but it means that they will market, sell, merchandise our brand the way I want it to be. They will know all the stories behind the brand. They'll know about the designers. They will do it the way I want to do it. Because we had a fallout with our American distributor who went off-piste and just did it his way, and it wasn't a good way. They weren't representing our brand right. So that motivated me. So, right, this is how we do it. This is how you have to do it. And you can get them to send you the information that however they're marketing it, and to make sure it's done right. It needs to be done right. Otherwise, if you've got inconsistency, your brand is then just gets confusing and diluted around the world. We send a little weekly news update. Every week we send them an email about what we've been doing. It could be in the factory, it could be at trade shows. So after this show, I'll send them loads of photos of the brand so they can see how we're showcasing at shows. We send feedback questionnaires, and I always involve them in the collection. So I send them a preview of what we're designing and ask for their feedback, and it might change, might just go tilt one direction or other depending on their feedback. So this is just some photos of my brands around the world in different shops. The last one is where I was at a trade show in Paris about a month ago, Who's Next Paris, and as soon as I stepped on the metro, I saw a woman who'd got my Hong Kong tote bag. I went, oh, that's my bag. And she says, no, it's my bag, Monsac. And I said, no, I designed that, that's my bag. And she said her husband bought it in Hong Kong when he was on a trip, and she loved it, and so I took a photo, and she was happy and I was happy, and that's why it gets fun and exciting when you see someone around the world and they've got your product. So this is just examples of where I've been around the world taking pictures, or get people to take pictures for me, and you build up a library of images. The more you get, the more you build, the more you record, the more it attracts buyers around the world, and so it builds. And that's just a really bit about my company and Talented. And about 75% of our business is export-led. I deliberately set it up to be an export-led fashion brand 2 years ago, and that's what it's doing, so it's delivering.